In 1989, Capcom released a game that was not the first of its kind, and in hindsight, it is not the best of its kind. But it streamlined and effectively redefined the belt-scrolling beat-em-up genre, a genre which over the next few years would see a true renaissance, the likes of which may never be seen again. A time in arcades when it was second in popularity only to the one-on-one fighter, another genre Capcom would redefine to even greater success in 1991. But what about the best console port of that game for its time? A version that saw release on a relatively unpopular add-on, but may just be, even now, the ultimate version of the game. I'm Joe, this is Same Name Different Game Gaiden, and in this installment, we're talking about Final Fight CD. Final Fight is a game with a weird history on consoles, one that really prevents me from properly covering this game in an episode of the main series. After all, the only console port that actually carries the same name is the Super NES version. There's a handful of computer ports that also have the same title, but honestly, the two most interesting versions, on the Game Boy Advance and the Sega CD, don't have the same name, known as Final Fight 1 and Final Fight CD, respectively. And it's the latter one we're going to talk about today. Sega's effort on their first CD-based system, the Sega CD, also known as the Mega CD. Sega licensing Capcom arcade games was a big help in the early Genesis days, so it appeared they were hoping for the same magic with Final Fight, assisted this time by contract developer A-Wave. By the time the Sega CD launched in North America in late 1992, the Genesis was a force to be reckoned with in the US and Europe, though it was badly floundering in Japan. Enter Final Fight, a game designed for the US market, according to a 2003 interview with Capcom developer Akira Yasuda. Would Final Fight be the key to Sega cracking open the market with the Sega CD? No. No, it wouldn't. But that certainly seemed to be at least part of the strategy at play here. And a big part of this is that the Super NES port of Final Fight is laughable, and Sega likely thought this was a great opening for them and their CD add-on. Final Fight on SNES was a huge disappointment for me and my friends, though looking back for this video, some magazines of the time did give it high marks, mostly on the strength of graphics and sound. But this version of the game is cut way down. It's missing a playable character, a full stage, a bonus stage, and the option to play with two players. Plus, it has considerably fewer enemies on screen at any one time. Beyond that, the Western release of the SNES game has a bunch of additional changes to keep in line with Nintendo's squeaky clean, family-friendly image of the time over here. Poison and Roxy, now fairly iconic characters in their own right, are removed and replaced with two men, Billy and Sid. And while I suppose their heart was in the right place, not wanting to be seen as promoting violence against women, it honestly feels a little bit silly. Though not as silly as some of the other changes, like turning a character named Damned into Thrasher, and Sodom into Katana. They also removed the blood, which was barely present to begin with. And Sega came out swinging on this one. While Streets of Rage, contemporaneous to the Super NES Final Fight, had already established that Sega was more on the ball when it came to the genre, it seemed like they really wanted to make a point with the Sega CD port of Final Fight. Guy is now playable, more enemies on screen, the co-op is here, the missing stage and bonus stage have both been restored, and even Poison and Roxy are back, though they are a bit more modestly dressed than the arcade original in the Western Sega CD version. If you're thirsty for a tiny flash of 16-bit underboob, I guess I have some bad news for you. And while Thrasher and Katana are still here, overall this game restores Final Fight to its proper glory. But wait a minute. At the beginning of this video, didn't I say something about this maybe being the ultimate version of the game? If it's just more accurate to the arcade than the Super NES port, Why would that be? Well, let's talk about what they added. The first thing you'd notice is that the intro is now fully voiced. Not especially well voiced, but in 1993, this was pretty impressive stuff. You'll also notice a new soundtrack, courtesy of T's Music, a company run by Taro Hara that has been in business since 1990. They took the original arcade compositions and turned them into some pretty excellent, fully realized Red Book audio tracks.
I believe you know who I am. Don't hang up. We have a little...
Finally, you have the time attack mode, which takes you into 3 brand new areas to pound as many bad guys as you can before time runs out. Does it add a ton to the game? Honestly, no. It's more of a fun diversion. But it is exclusive to this port, and you get some cool art that comes up on the end screen for this mode. So is Final Fight CD really the ultimate version of Final Fight? Probably not. It looks worse than the arcade and is much harder to get a hold of, particularly with the recent release of the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle on Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC, which has a very solid emulation of the arcade game on it, alongside several other great brawlers at a budget price. Still, it's a unique version, one of those weird curios that could only have existed during the dawn of the multimedia age. So, if you're into that stuff, I can't recommend it highly enough. The soundtrack alone is worth spending a few minutes with it. So check it out, and I'll see you next time, right here on Same Name, Different Game, Gaiden. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you dug the show, do all the stuff. Like, subscribe, hit that stupid bell, and tell me in the comments your favorite Sega CD game. If you really dug it, consider supporting the shows on Patreon. This episode was voted on by Patreon supporters. Plus, you'll get your name here with all these cool people, early access to new videos, and more. If you want more Capcom, the playlist for the Capcom chronology is on the left, and if you want more beat 'em ups, the Double Dragon playlist is on the right.